All right, Alexander, let's do a really quick video on a 6 hour video call, which is the Summit for Democracy, Biden's Summit for Democracy. And why this will be a quick video is because there's really not much to say because the whole thing was just a gigantic waste of time. But, I think they did this to kind of lay the groundworks for more censorship of speech and for kind of making the excuse that they need more power in order to save democracy. It's that argument, well, democracy's dying, so you have to give us more power in order to save democracy. And van der Leyen came out with her speech, the unelected van der Leyen came out with her speech and said that the EU is working on hate crime laws and new censorship regulations because, democracy and freedom, so they have to censor people. And so the EU is working on stuff like that. Anyway, she kind of gave it away, I think, which is, give us more power so we can censor more and we can prevent free speech and freedom in general, and that way we'll save democracy. In the end of the day, 6 hour snooze fest. But, wow. What else do you expect from Sleepy Joe? And Blinken, by the way, who was there.
Well, indeed. Well, can I just say, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I have an iron rule. Politicians who talk all the time about corruption are themselves corrupt. That's almost always been true. And in terms of democracy, governments that talk about how they're protecting democracy are looking for ways to abolish it. And that, it seems to me, is also true. And it's exactly what you described about this democracy summit. It's what they're really doing is they're trying to create a situation, a them and us situation. There's the other people, the dark people, the people on the other side, the Chinese, the Russians, and their friends, and they stand for, autocracy or something nebulous, which we don't quite know. And then there's us and our friends. We stand for democracy, and we must be protected from what these other people are up to and from their fellow travelers and followers in our midst, by increasing all the protections so that our democracy can be protected and preserved. Of course, what you're talking about is a managed democracy. Something I remember way back about 10, 15 years ago. People were criticizing Putin for creating in Russia. There was a lot of talk in those days about how Putin was supposedly creating a managed democracy, and people were pointing out that such a democracy, a managed democracy, isn't actually a democracy at all. Whether that really does describe the situation in Russia, I don't know, but it certainly describes the evolving situation that we see in the West. It's a situation where democracy is not the people being allowed to say their views, exchange opinions, think for themselves, decide how they should vote by themselves after hearing all the various arguments. It's where those arguments are controlled, where they're treated in effect like children who have to be, educated and instructed as to what is true and what is not, and whose votes can then be shepherded in that sort of way. By the way, another Western leader, well, he's not really Western leader, but another leader, another NATO leader, has been far more explicit about this, much more open about this, and that's no less a person than that arch-democrat President Erdogan of Turkey. He's also said how important it is to control debate and discussion in order to save democracy by essentially abolishing it.
Yeah. But Biden was scripted during this summit as well, of course, and I just wonder, whose idea do you think this really was? Obviously, Biden is he's playing a part. This thing is like all theater. Yeah. But who do you think came up with this thing?
I'm going to make a guess. I think it's probably Blinken. But I'm going to add, whoever it was must be very, very disappointed by the outcome. Because the build-up to this thing was simply tremendous. We had all this talk for, weeks and months, preparing us for this great summit for democracy. It was going to bring together all these important countries from around the world. It was going to bring together the United States and the European Union. Some tremendous, big, well, nobody quite said what, but something was expected to come out from it. And It lasted all of 6 hours. Nothing of any importance was said. The media barely interested. I mean, if ever there was a flop, it was this one. So I mean, it was. I mean, what can I say? You go to the circus. There's a big drum roll. When the sort of performance is due to start. And then you're basically told, well, that's it. We're all going home now. I mean, that's how it felt to me. I mean, it all went off like an absolute damn squib of a sort that I've never seen or imagined. And I do wonder what the reason for that was. Whether it was because the administration is so absorbed now by its many other problems which are mounting all around it, or whether it became embarrassed by the fact that some of the attenders were frankly not very democratic people. I'm not going to point to any particular countries, but a few stand out, or whether it was that the criticism that's been coming from all kinds of places of this thing was becoming too effective, or whether it was the fact that the president himself is simply not up to hosting a democracy summit like this. I mean, I don't know what the reason was, but as I said, the thing was a complete and utter flop. And as I said, after the way it had been built up, it's bizarre to see what a total flop it was.
Yeah, all these video conference things are just becoming so stupid. But this is how we're going to define the Biden presidency. A guy reading a script on some soundstage while doing some sort of video summit or video call. Well, a couple of more quick questions and we'll wrap this up. The first question, Orban in Hungary, not invited to this. Orban has won election twice, democratic elections, internationally recognized democratic elections. Just goes to show that they do not like Hungary and they do not like Orban. And this is a real diplomatic failure, isn't it? Because in diplomacy, the last thing you want to do is create an us versus them type of scenario. But this is so childish because it really is, here we are and we're the democracies and we don't like all you guys. So, you're not invited to this little private soiree. That's the message that they're sending, not only to, China, Russia, Turkey. I mean, they expect this, fine. But to Hungary as well. I mean, really? That's what you're going to say is not a democracy? 81 million votes, Joe Biden?
Yeah. Well, very good point, by the way. But can I just quickly say, I mean, what it does in not inviting Hungary exposes the sham nature of the whole thing. Because, of course, Hungary is a member of the European Union. It's a member of NATO. It's a member of the Western Alliance. As you correctly said, Orban has won. I think he's won 2 successive elections, but I think he'd actually won another election before that. So I think he's won 3 elections in a row. Well, not in a row, but in total. And of course, Hungary was until very recently, an example of the spread of democracy into Eastern Europe. But you don't like the government, you don't like the prime minister, you don't like some of his policies. And to be very clear, it's not how Orban gained power or how he retains it that's the issue. It's clearly what they don't like are his policies. The fact that he doesn't like the European Union and is critical of much of what he does. The fact that he disagrees with policies, Western policy towards Russia, and has a good relationship with the Russians. And of course that he has certain domestic policies on social issues, which in our great democratic system we are constrained in discussing on programs like this. So the result is, the net effect of all of that is that, he's not a Democrat, so we exclude him. Not because, as I said, he's not supported by his people or he's not constitutionally and democratically elected, but because of what he does. And of course, that reduces the whole issue of democracy. It becomes, a sort of political partisan issue, which mirrors, I have to say, a lot of what is going on in the United States itself, where we have, our democracy, which we protect, we stand by, where we everything we do protects the democracy. But our opponents, of course, they're not just our opponents, they are enemies of democracy. They seek to undermine it. And we could see the damage that's doing.
Yeah, honestly, not being invited to this summit to me is like a badge of honor, if anything. But let's go to Ursula von der Leyen.
Just to say briefly, one country apparently made that decision too. Obviously, the fact it's got close relations with China, which is Pakistan, undoubtedly played a role. But I understand that they were invited and they chose not to go. So,
what does that say? You just said, here's your invite, we're not interested.
we're not a democracy. We decided we're not a democracy.
We're not going to play this theater. But here's someone who knows a lot about democracy, Ursula von der Leyen. Of course, I'm being sarcastic. Who knows nothing about democracy? But this is how tone deaf she is. This is how tone deaf this entire sham theater of a summit was. And this is a direct quote from her speech at the Summit of Democracy. Quote, this is Ursula von der Leyen, quote, I'm going to try to say this with a straight face too. It is painful when a small group assumes unlimited power and imposes a single vision on their entire society.
We know how painful it is when a small group takes unlimited power and imposes a single vision on all of society.
Could Ursula have been talking about herself? Or was it a slip? Or is there a certain lack of self-perception there? Or is this some sort of subliminal message that she's putting up? No, I know. I mean, you can't make this up. I mean, this is so bizarre when she talks in this extraordinary way. As I said, it's just ludicrous. But it shows you again how completely out of touch these people are, because they're out of touch in effect with what they've become and what they're doing.
Yeah. Absolutely. They're just completely oblivious to everything that's going on around them, including what's going on within their own organization. They're clueless.
Absolutely.
They're absolutely clueless.
Absolutely. And as you rightly said, Ursula von der Leyen, who's won many elections, has gone from election triumph to election triumph. She is the Democrat. Viktor Orban, who's won 3 elections, is not. So there you go.
Yeah, there you go. The Summit for Democracy. All right. We'll leave it there at theduran.locals.com, Rumble, BitChute, Odyssey, and SuperU. And go to the Duran shop. Use the code GOODDAY and get 10% off. Do you have the mug, Alexander? There?
Absolutely. It's my favorite mug now. You can see Good Day. There you can see. There you go.
All right. 10% off. Just write those words on checkout and you'll get that discount. Take care.